make the chocolate orange sandwich wafer cookie. This is a great deal like the Milano cookies that you get from Pepperidge Farms, only they've got a little bit more flavor to them because there's some lemon and some orange zest added to them. Also, the glaze in between them has a little bit of coffee. So the same look, just a little bit different flavorings. So we're going to start off with some room temperature butter, and we're going to beat that with a paddle until it's light and fluffy. Trying to really be conscious about using the switch over with my right hand over the top of the machine. That way I don't have my hand in front of everything. Okay, so now we're light and fluffy. I'm going to add the sugar and I'm going to beat it until smooth. And during the beating until smooth, I'm going to take my rubber spatula and I'm going to scrape the sides of the bowl one time, just because it always makes me feel better. Come on. There you go. Now don't confuse the light and fluffy of the beating of the butter with light and fluffy on your cream mixture. I'm going to add the egg. And I'm going to beat it until it's completely incorporated. And I see a little bit of stuff lingering up on the side, so I'm going to scrape the bowl one more time. I know I drive you all crazy, scrape often. And to this mixture I'm going to add 1 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. And I'm just going to kind of give it a little quarter. I know. Chef, if I did that, doesn't matter. Okay, so after I get that completely incorporated, I'm going to take my salt and I'm going to mix it into my dry ingredients, which is just simply the flour. I'm going to put the flour in completely. I'm going to get the flour completely incorporated. And then I'm going to add some lemon and some orange zest. I did zest it with a zester, however, or a microplane. However, I also chopped it up a little bit. Actually, I should say my lovely and talented assistant chopped it up. I'm going to let that mix. I'm going to stop it again. I'm going to knock everything out of the paddle and scrape everything off the sides of the bowl. And we're going to mix it just a little bit more. That way we have an even distribution of the zest. By the way, my oven has been preheated to 375 at this moment, and that's what our batter is going to look like. I now have a disposable pastry bag fitted with a number 4 plain tip. Make sure that when you cut your pastry bag that the entire tip is showing. I'm just going to simply put my mixture into the piping bag. And then what I've done is I've done a little template up underneath my parchment that I'm going to pipe on. And I've marked 5 2-inch strips. That way I have the same size cookie each and every time. In a convection oven, the parchment tends to blow around quite a bit, so I'm going to just pipe a little bit of the batter up underneath. I'm going to then press my parchment down on top of it, and I'm going to start piping. I'm going to pipe the entire thing. I'm going to ease off the pressure, and I'm going to pull back. I'm going to pipe the entire thing. I'm going to ease off on the pressure and pull back. If you don't pull back, you're going to end up with a point on the end like this. If you have that point and you want to get rid of it, you can dip your finger in just a little bit of water and kind of brush it back on top. That works also. And then I'm just going to pull that little template down, and I'm going to do the next line. Now this is going to make approximately 30 sandwich cookies, which means I should be able to pipe 60 of these. I'm telling you, sometimes I think it's a pipe dream. Depending on who's piping, you might not get that many, but hopefully you will. Okay, so a lot of the times when my students are doing these, I end up with about 30 sandwich cookies, and that means 2 sandwiched together, so that would be a total of 60 cookies. Guys, I seem to have more than that. I don't know if you guys are piping too many or you're piping them too long, but anyway, I have a few more than that. To finish off this bag, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it down flat on the table, because I want to get all the stuff that is at the top of this, and I want to make a cookie out of it. I do not want to waste my product, so I'm just going to take a bowl scraper and I'm going to scrape all that batter down to the bottom. And I've got a little bit of an air pocket, so you may want to kind of burp that just a little bit. And then I'm going to move this on down just a little more. Again, there's that air pocket. I'm going to kind of release some of that air. And then I'm just going to continue piping. And I know here in a second it's going to splatter or sputter at me, so I'm going to pipe slowly. There you go. The first sputter. And I've probably got another 5 cookies in here, so I'll continue on with those here in a few minutes. Okay, so these have been in the oven for about 12 minutes at 375, and you're beginning to see some color around the edges, and that's what we're looking for. Maybe just a tad more color, but not too much. I'll show you the first tray real quick, and then we'll move on to the next portion of this recipe. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for them to be brown around the edges, but I don't want them to have a golden brown color on top. I'm making the glaze for the chocolate wafer cookies, the Milanos, and I'm melting some unsweetened chocolate up, and to that unsweetened chocolate I'm going to add some sifted powdered sugar. I definitely had to sift this one because my powdered sugar was very lumpy, and I've got a tablespoon of cocoa. I'm just going to mix that together. And then I'm going to add that to my melted chocolate. Pull this up, get rid of this stove. That way I've got some working room real quick. And to the melted chocolate, we're going to add the sifted cocoa and powdered sugar. By the way, it's 1.25 cups of the powdered sugar, and like I said, a tablespoon of the cocoa powder. And then I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of coffee, hot. I made it with the espresso powder. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to keep mixing that. And I'm also going to add a teaspoon of corn syrup to it. Guys, I'm just going to eyeball that teaspoon. I think it'd take more to get the corn syrup out of the teaspoon than it would if I accidentally went a little over. And this is going to make a fairly thick glaze. When I say glaze, it shouldn't be extremely runny, but then it shouldn't really, it's certainly no icing, okay? And I may change from this. Yeah, that works a little better. Kind of reminds me a little bit of ganache. In fact, you could dip your cookies in ganache if you wanted to. I'm going to run across my kitchen real quick, and I'm going to get the cookies for you.
Down.
My lovely assistant had them all ready for me. They were down. He also matched my cookies up for me. So, you know, just take your cookies and hold one up, hold another one back to back, and make sure that all your cookies are about the same size. Now, something they do say in the instructions is to spoon or with a spatula put this down. And I find that if I just take my cookies and I lay them right beside each other. Cut it. Okay, so Bill has gone through and he's matched my cookies up for me. And what he did was he laid one up and one down. And we're going to pipe these, the filling into these. The instructions actually say to use a spatula, but it was a housewife. It's a housewife's recipe, so even though it's a great cookie, it's still kind of a housewife's recipe. It came from a book, I believe, called International Cookies, which is a really nice book. Bill, would you hand me the scissors, please? But again, it's written in cups and such as opposed to weight. So anyway, we're just going to pipe a strip of filling down the center of each one of them, and I'm going to do about half of them. And then after I get about half of them done, then I'm going to come back through and I'm going to cap them off. And all you really need is that one line, because when you go to cap those off, you're going to squish them, and that is going to bring that icing all the way to the edge. And you can, if you look really closely, well, maybe not on that one, I lied to you. I know, y'all are so used to me. But if you kind of look, you can see how that is just peeking out the edges a little bit. Don't put a lot of pressure on them. The cookies are a little fragile. I just broke one. So we'll get them all capped off. And then we'll come back to you. Okay, so we got all the cookies filled and capped off, and I'm going to put the remaining glaze back into my bowl. And I'm going to get as much of it as I can because I'm going to need it all. And I'm going to add a little bit more coffee to it to thin it down to a dippable consistency. And that was probably another tablespoon, maybe a little bit more, maybe 2. I don't think it was 2, I think it was 1.5. Sounds good, doesn't it? I know, I can hear all of you, Chef, wear your gloves. Nobody's eating these. I want to make sure that it's nice and smooth. Add just a little bit more coffee. Not too much, but just about that other half tablespoon. Now basically this is a chocolate coffee flavored flat icing. Okay? About the consistency of Elmer's glue. I'm going to take my cookies. I'm going to start with the first cookie. I'm going to just dip it. And I like kind of dipping it at an angle. I'm going to brush off any excess, and I'm just going to place it down. And we're going to dip all of the cookies like so. And then after they get a chance to set, I'm going to come through and I'm going to dip the other side. Okay, so the filling or the dip has
Glaze.
gotten a chance to set.
Glaze.
For the most part. They're still a little wet, but I'm just going to come back through and I'm going to dip the other side. It's just that simple, okay? You might want to get yourself a clean sheet pan with a clean liner, or at least a clean liner to do this. That way you're not putting your cookie back onto something that's already got a dip on it. You can stripe them, you can do whatever you want. Quite frankly, the glaze doesn't always set as much as you'd like for it to, especially the more liquid you use in it, i.e. the coffee. So you might want to think seriously about just doing them in a little bit of chocolate. Okay, that's it for now.